All right, I think we'll get started. First off, thanks so much, everyone, for joining us today for the first episode in a webinar series by Xooa. This presentation is going to be on tokenization on the Xooa platform. Now, I see a lot of names I recognize on the webinar attendee list, but in case you haven't heard of us, Xooa is an enterprise blockchain cloud application platform focused on reducing barriers for entry for enterprise blockchain adoption by making blockchain app development easier, faster, and higher quality. So today there are going to be two speakers. My name is Danker-Feldman, and I've been working as a blockchain evangelist at Xooa for the past year. I'll be delivering the brunt of the presentation, and then the Q&A session is going to be run by Arisht Jain, who is our lead software engineer. So today on the agenda, I'm going to be discussing four areas. I'm going to start with a brief history of digital tokens. I'll then dive into fungible versus non-fungible tokens as well as their use cases. Then I'll discuss token applications on the Xooa platform, and we'll end with a demo of tokens on the Xooa platform, which will then be followed by the Q&A session run by Arisht. So start off with, we'll discuss a history of digital tokens. Now, of course, Bitcoin initiated blockchain technology and was the first crypto, but it really would be impossible to discuss digital tokens without bringing up Ethereum. So Ethereum created protocol standards that serve as templates for implementing all basic functions of a tradable token. These templates can be used at their base level, and then add extra features could then be added in order to customize them based on the requirements of your specific use cases. Now, many different types of standards were created, but two of the most popular were the ERC20 standard, which is for fungible tokens, and the ERC721 standard, which is for non-fungible tokens. So Ethereum's ERC20 standard in particular led to a boom in initial coin offerings, or ICOs, in 2017, that many of you may have heard about. And it was due to the ease with which new digital currencies could be developed. Now, this slide might look a little goofy, but it does a decent job of explaining the differences between fungible tokens and non-fungible tokens. So these are specifically virtual assets. And the standards led to a lot of virtual assets being developed. On the left, we have the Funfair token, which is an actual digital currency that envisioned the use of these chips in a decentralized casino. It actually reached a market cap of nearly $800 million and is now hovering around $25 million. So you can see the ferocity with which that speculation took place in 2017 and 2018. On the right side, though, we have CryptoKitties, which were also developed as a non-fungible digital assets. And while they look a little bit goofy, the nearly $37 million has been transacted since they were started. This was specifically as a crypto collectible, where they were unique and non-interchangeable. But after this initial phase of these digital assets being created, the advantages and use cases of digital tokens began to really grow and begin to mature. So now I'll dive into fungible versus non-fungible tokens. So digital tokens have several core features. Of course, they're going to be digital, but they also allow for clear ownership of digital currencies or digital assets. Typically, but not always, these tokens must be transferable. And then finally, these assets must be traceable so that you can see the entire history of a given token. So the immutability of the blockchain is essential to this feature. Fungible tokens we will On a basic level, consider a digital currency. So looking back at the Funfair tokens, each of them was identical to one another and completely interchangeable. Their use cases are more expansive, though, now than just the old, more speculative digital currencies that were created. They also have both financial and non-financial use cases. The first one is stable coins, like the privately issued US dollar coin by Coinbase, which allows for instantaneous transfer of payments between anyone with an internet connection. For this, Coinbase itself actually holds dollars in a vault that match the amount of USDC in circulation. Many of you may have also heard of the central bank digital currency that's being developed in China and considered in the US. Loyalty programs are another effective use case, allowing companies to operate interoperable loyalty programs on private networks. And then finally, carbon credits are another potential useful example here, where organizations in different industries can operate on a marketplace for these carbon credits that are tokenized. So fungible tokens dominated in the early years of blockchain networks. However, for enterprises, non-fungible tokens are a much more diverse asset class that could have much more impactful use cases than fungible tokens. So non-fungible tokens are, on a basic level, considered digital assets. Looking back at the CryptoKitties tokens, each of them was unique and non-interchangeable. And for them, the CryptoKitties themselves were digital. That entire process was digital, but whether digital or real, all types of assets can be tokenized. So for use case examples, they're primarily non-financial use cases that are more widespread than for fungible tokens. So properties, for example, can be tokenized for ease of establishing ownership, trading, and tracing the property back to its origin. Investing in tokenized art is also a possibility. For supply chains, projects like IBM Food Trust have tokenized shipments on a supply chain, creating non-fungible tokens where each shipping container is unique. As healthcare systems digitally transform from their current paper-based systems, new security measures will be needed, and blockchain is an effective solution at adding auditability and immutability by tokenizing patient identities and being able to track their vitals and details over time from their checkups and hospital history. For each of these non-fungible tokens, the meaning of ownership of those tokens is a little bit different for each of them. Actual ownership means you're gaining actual value from holding onto those tokens. So for rights to real estate and for art, you gain value by actually holding on to those tokens. Control is who is responsible for some asset, where the token is acting as a means of enhanced accountability. So for example, on supply chain or shipping, whoever's holding on to the digital token is, in that turn, responsible for that. And then finally, no purpose means it's likely a government agency or other organization that's simply holding on to the tokens to keep/protect its data. So for example, in healthcare management or a land registry. For some use cases though, including some we've already mentioned, an added dimension is necessary. And here's where it gets a bit more interesting. We can consider units fungible while the primary asset is non-fungible. Returning to the supply chain example mentioned, you could create a container of vaccines that is considered non-fungible, but each vaccine within that crate could be considered fungible. As you can see on the right side here, we have our container, which is the primary asset, and the 9 vaccines located in it that are each fungible with one another. For a property, you could tokenize the property into a non-fungible asset, then fractionalize the ownership into fungible shares of that property. Finally, different classes of stock shares offer different types of stocks. So stocks within a certain class are fungible, while each class itself is considered non-fungible. Now I'm going to jump into the token implementation portion of this presentation on the Xooa platform. So ERC20 and 721 standards were already discussed relatively in depth, and Xooa offers them as pre-built smart contract templates on its platform, allowing you to quickly and easily build fungible and non-fungible tokens that fit both of these standards. Now, we also offer an added token smart contract that builds further on these features and advances on these token frameworks. So with this is the asset management smart contract on Xooa, and it adds several interesting features. First off, it is both fungible and non-fungible, which is useful for those supply chain, real estate, and stock shares use cases. Because unlike ERC20 and 721, Xooa's asset management smart contract allows for both types of those assets within a smart contract. Additionally, and this is available on all smart contracts on the Xooa platform, with Xooa you can start a single party trust model on the Xooa Cloud shared network, where it's easier to build and operate with low transaction costs. So this is useful for early stage experimentation, where you're building out these proof of concepts, demos, and MVPs, then presenting them to stakeholders and gaining that validation from that project, then moving to distributed once that takes place without losing any of your data. So decentralized networks facilitate more trust, but require more involved infrastructure management. It's also a REST compliant system. So RESTful API endpoints make it easier to create end-to-end applications such as web and mobile apps, removing the need to study and implement distributed ledger technology interfaces and SDKs. A middleware or message queue offers asynchronous processing and is an important piece of blockchain token infrastructure that enables reliability, scalability, high performance, and fast UX response to client applications. And finally, we have these three separate important features that I'm going to dive into individually and show what they look like with pictures of the Xooa platform that are specific to each of those features. So first we have our immutable metadata feature. So just as assets or tokens may have attributes that change over time, some may have attributes that may not change over time once they've been created. So examples would be a social security or national ID number of an individual, or in the case that you see on this screen, it would be properties of a real estate property. So it would be the address, the date built, the square footage of the property. It's useful that a framework allows the asset creator to define certain attributes that can't change over time. Digital assets may also have related information or attributes that do change over the time of an asset or token, and we call this mutable metadata. It is then useful to track the changes of such data on-chain without having to resort to complex technical workarounds. For example, when using tokens to represent healthcare patients, it's useful to be able to track health metrics such as heart rate, body temperature, or a condition over time. In the case of this real estate property, the current price of the property is its recorded detail. The history of changes are recorded over time. So they're stored on the blockchain ledger, and those cannot be changed. They're entirely traceable. Finally, we have that it's a divisible asset. So just like in the real world, there is at times a need to divide an asset after it was created. The token may represent ownership in a real estate unit, a right in a business, interests in partnerships, or in this case, 10,000 shares of ownership in this property. The owners of the original assets may determine whether the holder of a token may later divide that token to allow the trading of fractional units. So units, as I mentioned earlier, are fungible, while the primary asset, the property, is non-fungible. So for geolocation, that location is mutable metadata with unique requirements in some cases. Down here, you can see the latitude and longitude of this property. And here you can see the location of the asset on the map. This address is, of course, fake, so please no one look it up. But the location of an asset over time has special meaning, and so there is value in showing the locations on a map as well as the times of those check-ins. In this example, the asset is a property, so it won't move, and that portion isn't as important. But if this were a supply chain, those times and locations would be very important. So I'm now going to dive into a demo of the Xooa platform, looking into ERC-20, 721, and asset management smart contracts, so that you can all better understand everything I've been discussing in this demo, or in this presentation. So here we have the Xooa console with its various available features. And for this demo, I'm going to be focusing on the ERC-20 smart contract and these asset management, Xooa managed smart contract. I'm actually going to skip over the ERC-721 smart contract because the asset management has a richer feature set in it that includes all these features, but several added ones as well. So I think it would be more interesting to dive into that. I'll start with a deployment of a demo stablecoin in the ERC-20 application. I'll then look into a vehicle supply chain model on the asset management smart contract. I'll then finally look into a mature healthcare case management smart contract to look at the extra features and capabilities that that the Xooa platform offers for more richer, mature data sets. So we'll go to the ERC-20 smart contract and select deploy. I'll name this demo stablecoin, give it a unique symbol, have a total supply, which, as a warning, you cannot change once this contract has been deployed. So there'll be 10,000 demo stablecoin in circulation. And then I have my choice of network down here. I can use the shared Xooa cloud. I can also have the option of deploying on the Ethereum public network. Additionally, I can deploy on any of these pre-configured networks as well. So I've pre-configured these networks on their respective platforms and then integrated them with with my Xooa account, with the Xooa platform, so that if I wanted to deploy this smart contract on top of any of these networks, I could simply select that network. But for the sake of this example, I'll use the Xooa ledger and select create. Now in the background, my own siloed Hyperledger Fabric private network is being deployed. The underlying chain code is being instantiated, and the heavy lifting of the blockchain is being done for me. Now looking specifically at the ERC-20 smart contract, this would be useful for building a proof of concept, MVP, or demo in this for a digital currency, since I can immediately begin playing around with this use case by simply deploying this application. I could also use this as the basis for a production-ready environment, because there are several features and capabilities that are very useful down the line. Our middleware offers asynchronous processing that adds reliability and scalability to any consortium, and our API gateway allows for easy the easy recording of data on a blockchain. Here I have my API token. which identifies me to the network and gives me a certain set of permissions as a user. So I'll copy that. And as you can see here, my app has been successfully deployed. Took a little under a minute, and I can immediately begin to interact with this smart contract. So I'll go to the API tab. I'll authorize my API token here. And here you can see I now have permissions to interact with each of the endpoints within this API sandbox. Since there's only one identity currently, I'll need to add a new identity that I can transact with. So I'll create that identity. And I'll grab its public key, return to the API tab, select the transfer endpoint, try it out. I'll input the public key, and I'll transfer half of the available stablecoin to this new identity. Select execute, and after a couple seconds, you'll see, yes, I have a 200 response code, a unique transaction ID, and my remaining balance is now 5,000 units for this admin. If I go to the world state, I can see that I currently have the balance of both of these identities, which is 5,000 for both of them. So that was showing an easy way of developing a basic ERC20 smart contract and easily transferring. As you can see for the API endpoints, these are all specific for this use case and all ERC standard compliant for the ERC20 standard. Returning to the apps page, I'll now go into an asset management smart contract that I had built before in a relatively short amount of time. As you can see here though, I have all of my past asset management smart contracts that I have built cataloged on the cloud for future use. So these can be accessed at any point in the future as long as they're not deleted by you. If I'll select the vehicle supply chain management smart contract. And if I go to the identities tab, here you can see I have a relatively basic model of a supply chain. So I have my manufacturer, my distributor, and my retailer. I'll need the API token of the manufacturer in order to create a new asset. So I'll snag that API token, go to the API tab, and then I'll select create. I'll try it out, and I'll create a vehicle asset. So here I have a Tesla SUV as the car involved in this supply chain. So it has 10 units as well. It has its properties here, its details here, its units here, and its location data here. I'll select execute. And after a couple seconds, I'll get a 200 response code. I'll want to keep this ID, which identifies the asset in question. And then I'll want to transfer. I'll want to transfer some of these units from the manufacturer to the distributor. So I'll need the public key of the distributor. I'll return to the API tab. Select transfer. I'll input the public key here. I'll transfer 5 units, and I'll grab the asset ID, and I'll select execute. And after a couple seconds, yes, I have my 200 response code and my associated details. So if I now go to the world state tab, this is the mutable document data store, essentially, that shows the state of the world as it currently is. So here you can see I have 2 owners of this asset right here, each with 5 units. So each owns 5 of the Tesla SUVs that are a part of this supply chain. If I go to the transactions tab, I can see here that I have both transactions involved here. So I have the original creation of the 10 Tesla SUVs and its associated details. And then I also have the updated state of the world where both the distributor and the manufacturer have 5 units. So the manufacturer may instead then transfer 5 units to a different distributor after this. So that has been the vehicle supply chain management smart contract that I had pre-built before this. I now want to finally, before I pass this off to Arisht for a Q&A session, quickly show a healthcare case management smart contract that has a lot of interesting added features that many here might find very useful. So if I just adjust the time scale for this, I can see here that I have many past transactions for this smart contract. This was put together by Arisht. He gave me access to his account through our user management capability. So I now have access to his smart contracts that I can now interact with as a good collaboration tool. If I open up this transaction, I can see that these tests, there have been COVID tests, the location of this test, the symptoms and vitals of this person, the breathing rate, location, etc. If I go to the trace tab here, after a couple seconds, I will see on a map the location of these check-ins. You can see the first one here has been in India, and there was another check-in over here in Arizona in the United States. Bit of a strange travel schedule, but you get to see the geolocation capabilities of this smart contract in this way. If I go to the dashboard tab, I can visualize and better analyze the data within this smart contract. So here I can see the number of people who have tested positive for COVID-19 and the number of male in relation to the number of male and female patients. Here I can see the current vitals of those that have tested positive for COVID-19. Here I can see whether or not someone's been quarantined versus whether or not they've traveled anywhere in the past. And then finally, I can see the temperature of positive cases. So the minimum, the average, and the maximum temperature of those who have tested positive for COVID-19. So these have just been a couple of the features that we offer. I encourage everybody on this call to sign up for a free trial of the Xooa platform. If they haven't already checked it out, we offer a free 50 block trial where you can check out all of these features and capabilities on this platform, including, there are many I didn't address, including the networks and external peers tabs. With all that, I am gonna now pass the presentation off to Arisht for the final section, the Q&A session. So thank you everybody for listening. We'll now take questions and Arisht will answer them.
Thank you everyone for joining in, and thanks Zach for passing off the mic to me. I have received a couple of questions, and if you want to get your questions answered, there is a Q&A section right below where you can click, you can ask the questions, and I will be glad to answer them all. So to pick up few, I have received one question from Santiago that can I use a different test network like Rinkeby? Absolutely, you can use a test network like Rinkeby. Even you can use mainnet as well. Zach, if you could do me a favor and go to the network section on our console, I could show you the way that you can connect any network here. So click on Add New and select Ethereum as the DLT type. Now here, you can go ahead and provide the funding account address, your private key, and that test account or even main account can be connected to Xooa, and you will be able to deploy the apps using that test network only. So Ismo is asking, is there possibility to view world state history? Zach, can you go to any of the apps and show that the world state and the transactions that we provide on the UI itself? So if you could see here, the world state provides the current state of the whole ledger that is available to you. And along with that, history is available. Using that, you can go to the transactions and see all the transactions that took place that is now part of the world state that you see as it is. Mm-hmm. The other question I have been asked here is blockchain creation takes time, and it's is kind of a constraint on the blockchain, the block creation, that is right. And how user-friendly can our app be if we consider deploying an app on this? So I would like to highlight the middleware that Xooa provides for this very purpose. So we have a queuing system in which if there are multiple requests in place and would take some time, we provide a queuing system, and you can have all the transactions to do synchronously or asynchronously through our APIs. This will allow a very friendly, a very great user experience for the end user, who will not even know as to what is going behind the burner, and what is, if it is going to have any impact on their experience. As we can see here, Zach has done just a transaction with a very less time limit of just 500 milliseconds. And we have generated a result ID. Now this result ID can help you in getting the transaction result at any given point of time later in the future. All right. So another question I've been asked is, after the free demo, how much is the price to operate in Xooa? So Zach, if you could go to the pricing page of us.
Ooh, upgrade plan, that's right. Sorry.
Yeah, so here you can see it starts from as low as 5 cents per block if you have more than 10,000 blocks, and is a little pricier for smaller number of blocks with 51 to 2,000. So that can be used after you have reached your free demo limit of 50 blocks. Mm-hmm. And another question that I have is, can we have our own user interface for the tokenization apps that were demonstrated here in the demo today? So yes, you can have your own user interface. What comes into place here is the APIs that we offer. You can use those APIs to query all the transactions, all the words, all the blocks. You can use those APIs to transact on the ledger. You can use it to post the data to the smart contract. You can get the data. So using all those, you can have your own UI available, set up for the end users, and use that to interact with the blockchain on the back end and show your own UI as well. There's another question that was left out is, are you working to integrate with the baseline protocol? I guess what John is here trying to ask is about the ERC20 protocol. So let me answer it according to that. If John, you meant something else, feel free to type it in. So yes, the protocol that we have, ERC, let it be ERC20 or ERC721, we have it's same standard compliant as you see anywhere. Plus, we provide REST APIs over and above the standard compliant that is available for these particular protocols. All right. I think that's all the questions that I have received till now. If you are, I will let you another couple of minutes if you have any questions before we wrap up the Q&A section.